This is my work progress for the digital design and fabrication course. So basically the assignment was to design a table object that is fabricated using a mold which is digitally designed and fabricated. So I chose to create a table lamp, and that was based on a YouTube tutorial I found for basically a canopy, but I figured it could turn into a great table lamp. And actually, initially, I wanted it to have so many curves and be of a complex structure, but later on, I was told this is hard to be fabricated, especially that we're going for a mold, not directly 3D printing. So I simplified the object much more, and then I moved to figuring out how to create the mold. I had two ideas in mind. The first one was actually to use some sort of fabric. So I played with some parameters of the original design to create some sort of an inner layer that could actually produce the same shape when fabric is folded around it. So I first tried with the cream that contains honey wax to actually make sure that the mixture could be taken off without damaging the mold itself. And after that, I moved to the first trial, which I had the idea of having the mixture inside a thin fabric and then placing it over the mold, but that wasn't really working out. Then I moved to the second idea, which is actually covering the fabric itself with the mixture and then placing it over the mold to take its shape. So the first time it was a bit of a fail. It just looked odd and wasn't sandable, or it couldn't have a smooth surface. So the second time I actually went for more work in preparing the fabric more and stitching it and preparing it in a way that it perfectly fits over the mold. But even with doing so, after placing it over the mold with the mixture, I guess being a bit heavy on the fabric, it stretched out a bit and it gave some weird shapes in some areas. So I worked on sanding it also, but that wasn't very successful because it's very thin and I felt that it's going to break down. So actually I tried coloring it after a bit of sanding, and I wasn't really satisfied with the final result. So I moved on to trying a different method. So I moved on to the second experimentation, which is a regular 5-part mold that has 4 parts as the base and then one cover to actually make the object have some sort of a thin outer layer, and then there's a thin layer inside which is going to work as the glass that's gonna be semi-transparent, and in between them I can place the lighting. Noticed that the cover could have been just a void from this part, like the inside, so it uses this material. Perhaps it could be it costs less and not be that bulky, but anyways, it's already printed out. So I started with taping the outer layer to make sure that the parts stick together and there is no leakage. And I started preparing the mixture. I actually used for all the experiments cement, gypsum, and water with a 1:1 ratio. So I poured the mixture in and I waited for it to dry. And when I was trying to take it off the mold, it broke down in the middle. Like each part of the mold would be broken, but that area of the mold, like the mixture that is stuck to one part, would easily get out and be intact. It wouldn't be broken into small pieces or anything. So I tried that several times, and then I came across a trial with gypsum where you only use gypsum as it dries faster, and then trying to place thin layers all over the mold and keep repeating that same process each hour or so until we reach the thickness we want for the object. So I did that, and while trying to get the mold out, it also broke down the same as the original mixture was broken down. And I figured while as there is no cover in here, I can see that the problem is indeed with the mold, the middle part of the mold, because it's hard to get it out without breaking the different parts from each other. So I guess if the mold itself was printed from an elastic 3D printing material instead of this rigid one, it would work perfectly. But anyways, I had to go with what I have. So as the different parts are actually intact, so I figured maybe I can prepare a thicker mixture using less water and actually trying to stick the different parts together. So I did that. I patched it up, and then I think it worked to create it, to make it some sort of a single object. And then I went to sanding it after drying. The sanding process was very tedious. It took around 3 hours to finish, to just try to smooth it as much as possible, to remove any extra mixture that's stuck on the outer layer, and to remove the thin lines of the 3D printing mold. So after that, I actually applied the protective coat, and then I added the light strip, and after that I added the inner cover. So this is the final object I have in hand. I'm pretty satisfied with the result. I could have done a bit more sanding maybe, but I was afraid I could break it up or something. And my only comment is actually if the mold itself with the same design was printed out of an elastic material, it would have worked perfectly. Or maybe I could have played with the design itself a bit to make it to avoid having this center curvature, which made it hard to actually take off the mold without breaking it up. But in general, I think it was a good enough final result, and it was an enjoyable process at the end of the day.